Here's what happened, guys. Last night, our favorite Congressman, Thomas Massie, talked to one of our favorite podcasters, Tucker Carlson. There was a kernel of information that Thomas Massie shared which brightly highlights a form of crony capitalism that could have happened through these AI data centers we're experiencing across the country if there weren't leaders willing to do what is right over what is easy and convenient. This form of crony capitalism is the opposite of what this movement is about, which is fairness across our business industries. We want to preserve free market capitalism and make America's future a small business renaissance. Welcome back to the RD Week show. Happy Thursday, guys. It's nice to know that there are leaders in our country like Thomas Massie who hold to their principles by doing what is right over what is easy and convenient. And our country could use a lot more of those leaders. And I do believe America's future leaders are small business owners. And it's important to remember that when it comes to politics, culture, theology, economy, they're all interconnected in shaping the future. And you, as a small business owner, may not care about politics, but politics cares about you. And so what I want to share is a clip from the interview that happened last night that is talking about one of these forms of crony capitalism. And this is going to be a great time. Let me get this up for you guys and bear with me thanks for the patience here because it's only me doing this. But please, if you hadn't yet done it, please subscribe to the show. And please leave your comments too, because that helps with the show and it helps me to hire a producer faster, the more we can raise awareness about the show. So let me now get the clip up for you guys. Make sure I'm sharing the audio. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, I got to sift through some of these tabs here. Okay, here we go, guys.
Let me give you another example of where this is happening, these data centers. So twice I have seen and stopped special provisions from being inserted into U.S. law to help data centers over all other types of businesses. In the big, beautiful bill, Marjorie Taylor Greene and I noticed that there was a couple pages that would give immunity for these data centers from state law, like all state law, but also went down to the local level, including planning and zoning. So in other words, they were trying to get in the big, beautiful bill a federal law that wouldn't just trample states' rights, abilities to regulate AI, but it would trample your local city commission or planning commission or county commission from being able to decide where the smokestacks and the cul-de-sacs go and keeping them separate. And so we fought and got that taken out of the bill. The margin of passing the big.
So to recap there, he was talking about this provision that was in there where the AI industry would have been immune to state laws, even on a local level with zoning. And that goes back to what this movement is against, which is to have an unfair advantage or special treatment for a specific industry. Because there are over 1,000 industries here in the U.S., and I do believe some of these industries have got to go as well. But we have to let then the free markets decide that when it comes to capitalism, and then being able to make sure that we are taking government out across our industries where it just doesn't make any sense. I do believe in the importance of protecting consumers, but we have to think about where is there unnecessary regulations within our industry? Where is there more of a barrier for small businesses to get started in industry and disrupt an industry and take those away? Because as these businesses get bigger and bigger and bigger, what we notice is that there's a lot of corruption that unfolds. And that's where we get into this crony capitalism, where then business is working with government in order to avoid more competition in these different industries. And this is something we have to reject as small business owners, and we got to unite on, is being able to make sure we are moving more towards free market capitalism. Because right now, what it's looking like for the pattern over the years is that we're moving more towards socialism. As an example, our federal government, has a stake of around 10% in the company Intel. And so when it goes back to socialism, which is the appetizer, then the main meal of communism, all roads lead to the abolish of private property. And it's when it comes to socialism, it's government confiscating property and then and owning the means of production. And then when we get into communism, it's confiscation of all private property. And there's an argument to be had of, well, it's for the workers. That's where you can hear that. It's for the workers, workers' rights. We want the workers to own the means of productions. But how do you get there? Who enforces that? And that goes back to government and goes back to then all of history where when it comes to these experiments relating to socialism that have had devastating and destructive consequences, they've all failed. You can look back to Stalin with the Soviet Union, to then Mao Zedong with China, and the tens of millions of lives that have been lost over the last 100 years to communism. And as small business owners, we must reject this, because one of the rights we have in our country that we must preserve is the right to be able to own our own small business and to be able to steward that for then our future kids, future grandkids, to be able to pass that on. To me, that's success as a small business owner, to build a business that lasts through all the chaos. It is stable. And we could use a lot more stability in our country right now. And as small business owners, that's where I believe America's future leaders are small business owners. And Thomas Massie, we're going to go back to him here because he actually he talks about this Renaissance idea. And it seems like we're getting on the same page here with our favorite congressman. So let me share with you another, this is an ex post from Congressman Thomas Massie here. Let me get this up for you guys. So here we go. Let me read this off for you guys. If America would embrace capitalism and reject cronyism in healthcare, agriculture, military contracting, insurance, media technology, and banking, we would experience a renaissance unprecedented in human history. This is coming from one of our congressmen. And it's so powerful to be reminded that right now, the reality, the hard truth is that there's a lot of corruption in our government. There is. Between that and globalist corporations, there's a lot of that. And more and more Americans are waking up to that fact, which gets me really excited for the future. Because what's important as a small business owner, and for me, I wasn't doing this. I was ignoring politics. I was a tourist. You can think about that with politics. Not really paying a lot of attention because I was so overwhelmed with the day-to-day operations of my business. And I know you are too. But what's important is when we can simplify the environment, when we can make sure that there's less regulation, less barriers of entry that are holding us back from operating our business, less taxes we're having to give to our government, so we can be able to invest more of that money in our business and in our own lives to improve our quality of life. When we can simplify the environment, we're able to handle better the chaos that is out there in our world. And there's a lot of chaos as well internally that we have to deal with. And so it's important for you to be able to understand who are your local elected officials, to be able to be aware of that and be able to notice determine where there's unnecessary burden in running your business. Take the time in the day to just document where was this a burden that you had thought may have been out of your control. Because one of the lies we've been taught is that there's just things out of our control and we should just ignore them and move on. And politics keeps coming up with that. These are too big of a problem for better people. Well, guess what? You are America's future leader. For future leaders, you are able to know right there what are going to be the solutions because you're dealing with it every day. And so when you can understand what those unnecessary burdens are and then be able to hold your elected officials accountable to say, hey, we need to figure this out and get this fixed, that type of pressure that gets put on there can create massive change. And right now we're experiencing massive change, but we're experiencing it in a way where we got to ask ourselves, has our quality of life actually improved over the decades? Thinking back to even 2010, back then. I, at that point, just started college. And when I think about that for myself and for others that I've had conversations with, the quality of life has been deteriorating over the years, especially we think back to COVID. And so we are at a time in history, a pivotal moment where massive change is unfolding, and this is a moment for us to channel that change towards making America's future a small business renaissance, to come back to local, to make sure we're creating a circular consumer-based economy. You're being able to figure out what products and services in your day that you can get at small businesses. I'm not small business only, but let's figure out how to be small business first. Because of course we can't maybe get all of our needs in the day for products and services from small businesses, but where can we focus on it first and just take a little bit of intention here to put towards that and then build the habit moving forward? And what could that do for our country overall? What could that motivate then for the younger generation to say, hey, I am seeing these other business owners that are operating and their quality of life is improving. Maybe I should start a small business too. Maybe I don't have to have this nihilism view of the country and that we're doomed. And actually, I can get out there and put in some effort and realize that I can make a difference, not only for my own life, but then for my community, and realize I'm bigger. This is bigger than just me. And that's what this movement is about. It's bigger than just one person in this movement. It's all of us coming together and realizing that we can not just adapt to the future from what other people are telling us, especially those that are in these big tech companies or globalist corporations, but we can actually shape the future. So let me share with you one more post from Thomas Massie here, relating to another form of crony capitalism that could have happened if it hadn't been for people that hold to their principles and decide to do what is right over what is easy and convenient. So let me get this up here too. And this you can go and check out. He actually asked this. So he says here, today our Judiciary Committee will vote on HR 8037. So you can look that up as well for what that is for that one. And then to give exemptions for data centers from environmental regulations. I'll vote no because no industry deserves special treatment under the law. If the regulations are too onerous, repeal them for everyone. So this comes back to what we talked about with this movement of fairness across the industries, where it doesn't make sense for certain regulations. Let's get rid of them then, instead of having special treatment for certain industries. And this is something we as small business owners need to rally together and unite on, is fairness. There hasn't been a lot of fairness. We think about that. We can point to many examples when it comes to the corruption in government. This is a prime example right here, where if it hadn't been for people that are holding to their principles, leaders that are holding to their principles, then there could have been these different forms of crony capitalism in this specific example. But to think that this is just it and this is the only experience we've ever had, well, we'd have to be very naive for that. So it's a moment to remind ourselves that our government is there to serve us, the American people, but it hasn't been happening recently. No, more than recently, let's put it that way. But a lot of Americans now are waking up recently to this fact. And so this is a moment here where we got to remind ourselves that there's a lot of work ahead of us, but there's a lot of opportunity with change. And as small business owners, we got to remind ourselves that we are the heart of the economy. There are over 36 million small businesses across over 1,000 industries here in the U.S. That's a big voice. And we got to continue to remind ourselves that we can shape the future of this country. So if you are a small business owner who wants to connect with other small business owners in person, they can join us for A Future Fest. This is where you can register. It's afuturefest.com. It's happening January 14th and 15th, 2027 in Charleston, South Carolina. The plan is to have over 300 small businesses coming across industries. And when you can learn from different perspectives and notice similar patterns, you can then better prepare yourself for the future moving forward and be able to create stability, not just in the business, but in your own life, and be able to handle then what's coming into the future. And that is chaos. Chaos can happen, and we're experiencing chaos right now. And my hope is we don't experience more chaos, but signs are pointing to that as a high probability in the future. And so stability is the antidote of chaos. So excited for that event. Hope to be able to see you guys there. And then I will see you guys tomorrow.